Okay, so broadly speaking, an agent-based model is this kind of idea for simulating a situation where you have some kind of behavior that you think arises more or less from the actions of individuals. And what you're interested in is what is the long-run behavior if I change some aspect of individual behavior. So, for instance, the one that you guys are seeing all over the place right now is agent-based epidemiology. And the way that works is I kind of think about a whole bunch of places and a whole bunch of people. And then I think about, okay, people don't just uniformly and randomly mix, right? So there's not a very real possibility that you'll interact with any particular random person in the United States, right? You are much more likely to interact with someone at the grocery store than you are to interact with someone in Atlanta, Georgia. And so in order to kind of get good models for these things, one of the ideas we might have is to just create a simulation for a whole bunch of people and then give them some rules for acting and see what the kind of end result is. And so in this case, I have a pretty limited number of names and a pretty limited number of places already predefined. And then I have some kind of agency things. And I'm going to dump my special agent because I don't really need that to make this part work. So I'm also going to dump my special place. So what I have so far is just, I'm getting some stuff out of the random library. I have some lists of names. I have the idea of a place and the idea of an agent. Oh, and they have hit points right now, which I also don't really need. Okay, so I have agents, and really all an agent does is it has a name and it has a way to tell me what its name is. And then I have a list of places and a list of agents, and I'm populating those with some kind of instances of objects. And then I have this, like, all right, these are just reporting methods at the bottom. What I would really like to do is have some kind of, like, behavior that they might engage in, right? And so in order to do some of that, I'm just going to give them locations. So the agents are going to be somewhere. Right, so I'm going to add a self.location, and that's just going to be some random choice out of, apparently, never mind. I'm going to say that I would really like to do this, and then we're going to notice that this is a crap choice. And in order to get that out, I'm going to change their reporting method to say is at, and then their self.location. Okay. Everybody kind of buy into this?
Following so far.
Okay. So when I ask to report out, I should get people are at places. Let's see, and feels like I have double spaces in here. Looks like I have double spaces in here. Oh, I have double spaces on both sides. When I do that, does it automatically add spaces in between them? Oh, cool. That's easier. All right. So I'm getting these reports about places that people are, right? But the places that people are, right, the self.location, what kind of thing is self.location? How do I check what kind of thing something is?
Type.
Okay, yeah, I can use the type. be a little careful. Some people will suggest a command called isInstance, which is a bad idea in this case. It does something a little bit different. So I'm noticing that these are all strings, right? But I bothered to make this place class, right? So I really don't want those to be strings. Does that make some sense?
So maybe you can take it out of the place list?
Yeah, so I really need to get it out of the list of places, not out of the list of place names. So in order to do that, I'm going to have to populate the place list first. Let's try it. What the hell? Maybe it'll figure it out. Okay, cool. It figured it out. It's telling me that they're now place objects, right? And so printing this out this way sucks. Because even if I comment out the typing thing, I still get these, like... What are these, by the way? What is this thing saying? It's a main.place.
Location in memory?
Oh, yeah, that's the location it is on the RAM. Which is how useful?
Not pretty useful in other instances.
Yeah, it's super useful to someone who's a lot smarter than I am. Or better at this than I am, right? This just isn't, this isn't useful to me right now. What is it that I wanted that to print out?
Just the name string.
Yeah, I wanted it to print out the name of the place they were at. So how do I change that? It's self.location is a place, right?
So if you add just dot name.
Perfect.
Like the name of that location.
Now you're thinking like a JavaScript programmer. Perfect. All right, cool. And I can probably comment out the thing that tells me all the places, right? Or at least I could make that look a little more, I don't know, usable. Places are... I'm just trying to make this so I can tell kind of what I'm talking about. So I'm just going to add some like stringing stuff here. Just to make it a little bit more clear, like places are, that was useless. How do I want to fix that? Why did it do that?
Take that first. It's printing that top line for every iteration of that loop. So you wanted to stick that on top of the whole loop.
Rad. I want that out front, and then I want to go in the loop and print all the place names. Okay, and then I probably want to add some kind of line like that to the top of the agent list, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Maybe agents report in. Okay, cool. Good deal. Oh, and it looks like I should probably add periods to their reports, right? Where is the right spot to do that?
Their report method?
Yeah, good. Change it in the report method. And that's why I wrote a report method, right? So that I could do some of this stuff a little bit more easily. And I don't really care whether how exactly you format your strings. This is an ugly method, this one I'm using. I really probably should be doing string concatenation instead of this kind of comma separated nonsense that I'm doing. Okay, seems like it's working now. All right, now I would really like to have them have some kind of behavior, right? So the first thing I might do is just give them the idea that they might go places, right? Does that kind of make sense?
Sure.
Okay, so in order to give them the idea that they might go places, I just make a definition for how they go places. So I'm going to call that wander. And it should be noted that here initially, at least, I'm writing the kind of dumbest available behavior for my agents, right? An agent-based model is a thing of complexity varying from the very, very simple thing I'm writing right now to an almost full-fledged simulation of the universe. Right? Somewhere in between is the level of complexity that is complex enough to give you meaningful results and also simple enough to run on reasonable hardware in reasonable time. Right? If you want to simulate the entire universe, you'll need really good hardware. If you want to simulate 50 people at a pretty coarse level, you can do that on Rappel pretty easily, right? So don't get bogged down in getting it to do exactly what you want it to do right at first. Just try to get it to do something at first. So in my case of getting it to try to do something, all I want them to do is switch which location they're at, right? So I'm just going to do, let's see, how did they get a place to be to start with?
You just have them pick randomly out of the list of places.
Okay, so I'm just going to pick a new place. Uh-oh. And it's whining because I forgot to pass the wander function self, right? And this is going to be a little problematic for me later, so I'm going to set a temporary variable here. I'm going to set target is the choice out of the place list, and then I'm going to set self.location equals target. And the reason that I'm doing it that way is I want to have both those things available right at this moment, because I want to report what's happening. So in order to report what's happening, I'm going to do print, and I'm going to say self.name left the self dot. Now, where are we leaving and where are we going?
Leaving self.location, going to target.
Okay, so I'm saying self.name, right? So Steve left the grocery store and went to the target. Is that gonna work?
String.
Oh, you want to make that string?
Or wait.
Why isn't it doing anything? That's a fair point. We'd probably make it a string. Why isn't it doing anything?
Never called one.
Oh yeah, I never called wander at all, right? So I have my thing that has all the available places, and then a thing that goes through and has all the agents report in. But I never told them to wander about, right? So let me add a little bit. I'm going to add just a while this is true, right? I'm going to make it prompt for another round. And then I'll do this bit. Except instead of report, I'm going to have them wander. You guys with me on that? What is this doing? How about why do I have the input in there?
I would think it would be to set that true to run the loop.
How about let me comment it out and we'll see.
Oh, right. It just sort of like stops that from being infinite. And you have to input something.
Yeah, so I have a different problem here. It says that it can only concatenate strings, not places.
Oh yeah, I saw it.
That's this.
Trying to cast that to a string, yeah. Target is still just the place, not the name of it.
Yeah, target's a place, and so if I want the name out of it, I need to get the name out of it. Right, because it's the whole idea of a place, not just the name of it. Okay, so let's try that. Let's see. Oh, and I did the same thing with the location. That should also be a name. Uh-oh.
Yeah, so it's just printing indefinitely.
Yeah, so that's why I wanted that input in there. And all that's, right, that's throwing away whatever you type. It's letting you type something and then hit enter, and it's just throwing it away, but it's making it pause until you hit enter. Okay, so far the agents report in, and their places, and now if I hit enter, they do things like left the grocery store and went to somewhere, left the sidewalk, went to the sidewalk. Oh, that's a little weird. I don't know whether they're staying at the same place or switching between different instances of sidewalks. You guys see that? Like I didn't actually account for it, but they might choose randomly to go to the same place that they're at. And I'd never controlled for it in this kind of narration. Right, so there's maybe something like kind of if statement here might be a solid plan. Right, to kind of control. But it is maybe okay if they switch from sidewalk to sidewalk. That is kind of an interesting thing to me. Like if they leave one grocery store and go to a different grocery store, that's maybe a thing I might be interested in capturing in my model. Does that thought process make sense? Okay, so right now I've got it switching the kind of targets, but what if I want to find out who's at the, say, hardware store?
You'd have to ask all of the agents what their location, and maybe print those up.
Yeah. So I'm going to do this kind of funny thing. I'm going to keep track of the same piece of information in two places. So I'm going to go up to my class for places, and I'm going to make a list of the agents that are at the place. And I'm going to call that agents at this place. And that's going to be empty to start with, right? And now where do I want to populate that?
Maybe at the end of wander, so once they've picked a place.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so they pick the target, right? And then it resets the location. So I'm going to need this to do two things. Like right in here. I'm going to need it to remove itself from the place that it is list and add itself to the targets list. So that the target list should be easy. So that's going to be target.agents at this place dot append this thing. So what that's doing is that's add this agent to the targets agent list. Right? And then I also need it to remove this agent from the previous, right? Actually, really from the location it's now at. So that should be something like self.location.agents. Oh, sick. There's a remove method. Okay, so this is getting a little JavaScript-esque. What does that whole line of crap do?
So you're saying for the location that you currently are, remove yourself from the list that location has of it.
Yep, exactly. So for the place you're at, look at who's there, remove yourself from that list. So this thing is adding itself, right, to the list of the place it's going and removing itself from the place of the list it's been. And then this last line is set the location to the target. And this top line, pick a place to go. And this line with the print, what's that one doing?
Just giving an update of where they are and where they're going.
Yeah, this is literally just narration. You guys with me on that? Like, that line's not actually changing anything, it's just telling you that something's changed.
Right.
Okay, so now this probably should work, right? Okay, so I'm getting a list of places. I'm getting a report out of places that people are. Oh. Shit. Where'd it get to with Ugg? So Ugg was at the park. He was the first agent in the list, right? And it says he left the park and went to the sidewalk. And then it says in line 36... in wander,
himself.
It says it's not in the list. Why isn't he in the list? What list is he at? Which part is it having a problem with?
Trying to remove himself from the park thing.
Yeah, he's trying to take himself out of the park list, right? Because he was at the park. So when he leaves, he should remove himself from the park list. But it's telling me that he's not at the park.
Where do we tell it to make a list of agents?
Yeah, so we told it to make the list of agents when it made the place, right? So it was empty. Right, so when we made the park, he wasn't there. Because we made the places first, remember?
And then I think they're only added for the first time when we tell them to move.
Yeah, we didn't ever add it to the list up here. You guys see that?
Right.
When we made agents, we told them where they were, but we never told the place they were there.
Until they moved, right?
Yeah, and then when we moved, we told them that they would be there. So all I need to do is kind of this thing. I need to do self.location, right? That's where he is. And I picked it because I did that choice. And then I need to do add yourself to the list of agents that are here. Does that make sense? Okay. So now I should get this. Like, all right. So people are places. And if we hit go, Ugg left the park and went to the park. Steve left the grocery store, went to the hardware store. Stephanie left the grocery store and went to the park. Like, okay, that seems like it's kind of working, right? I still have this kind of weirdness about, like, Ugg left the park and went to the park. I'm not sure whether he went to a different park or whether he, like, decided to wander and then picked the same place he was at to wander to. If I wanted to disallow that possibility, we'd do something in here, right? In the wander function. And so if we wanted to be sure it was a different place, we'd do something like, all right, so the target is the choice out of the place list. And so we'd just be like, look, man, if target equals self.location. Is that right? Why is it whining? Oh, maybe because I don't have another line. What's it whining about? It's not whining about the... Why is it whiny? Anybody?
I really don't know.
What's one equals sign do?
Oh, okay, so that you use the assignment operator instead of the check for equality.
Yep. So I really shouldn't be saying they stayed, right? I should be saying something like self.name stayed, right?
So, and it might be kind of nitpicky, but we have to instead replace if with while and then put the print statement after and just have it keep changing the target because it is unlikely, but it might pick the same place twice.
Oh, yeah. So
that's only one check.
I didn't really, yeah, I didn't kind of recheck this, right? And this depends a little bit on the behavior that you want. If you think that there's a reason that your agent might choose to stay at a place, then you'd really probably want to do something like, if the target is the same as the location, then you just print out that you stayed and do something like else, and then take all this other stuff and tab it in one. Right, so I'm letting the possibility that, like, if this thing picks the spot that it's at, we'll just let it stay there, I guess.
Okay.
And that kind of goes into how smart are your agents. Like, in this case, right, they're just wandering at random. So if you wanted to do a better job with an agent-based model, you might do something like set your agents to have a level of hunger and a level of like wanting to be outside, and a level of how much they need to go to the hardware store. And you might have different types of agents even, right? You might have like worker agents and kid agents and parent agents and right and then their wander methods might be different for each of them, right? They might have a higher likelihood to go to the hardware store than to go to the park. Or, you know, if they get hungry, they're guaranteed to go to the grocery store regardless of what else is happening. Does that kind of thought process make sense?
Yeah.
So that might be where you want to extend your agent class to make a, like, handyman agent and a, you know, parent agent and a kid agent and all these kind of sub-kinds. I think, though, that this'll... Let's see if we get one that stays. Okay, so this is a little weird, right? It says at the top here that Astroflower left the park and went to the park. Oh, okay, there's a stayed. You guys see that? Let's see, that one everybody left. Okay, so here's a, like, stayed. Steve stayed. But there's still some of these where they left, like, Ugg left the park and went to the park. Why is that an allowed outcome? Like, why isn't that he stayed in the same spot?
They're two different objects, they just have the same name.
Yeah, exactly. There's two different park objects. They happen to have the same name, but they're different parks. So for one last thing that we can add to this, let's add a place report. So I'm in the place class, right? And I'm adding a way for the place to report. So I think I'd do something like print, I guess. Oops. I probably don't need to start that with a space. Something like the agents at the self.name are. And then I might print out some kind of little gizmo that just tells me that I'm kind of indented a line. This could even just be spaces, right? You can even use one of these, I think. Let's try that. Plus agent.name. Is that gonna work? Thoughts?
No.
Good. Why not?
You want to print out the list that's in agents at this place.
Oh, yeah, I need to... Okay. Because agent, right, here doesn't mean anything. So I need to do something like for a in agents... Oh, wait. It's self dot agents at this place. No. Why not parentheses? Why wouldn't this work with parentheses here?
It's not a function.
Good, it's not a function. It's just a list, right? So it doesn't know what to do if you try to call it. Okay, and I'm going to print a tab and then their name. And then... Why isn't this working? It's not telling me who's where. I mean, it's telling me, I guess it's narrating their movements, right? Why isn't it telling me the people at the places, though?
You have to call the method.
Oh, yeah, I need to call the report method for the places. Okay, so that's essentially this, right? Okay, and my kind of reporting things are getting a little cluttered. So I'm going to comment out a whole batch of reporting things. Did you guys know you can do that? This triple quote thing for a block comment. All right, let's see. Oh. That's a little weird. Why is it printing none? Why is it printing nuns? What in the heck is that?
You commented out the report. Think.
You think it's one of these?
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Now it's not working again. It's doing what it was doing before, which seems fine, but it's not doing what I wanted it to do. Why isn't it doing what I wanted it to do? Like, which parts are working?
You're stuck in the while loop.
Oh, yeah, I'm getting into the while loop and staying there. You guys see that? It's never going to escape that while loop because it's fundamentally stuck in it because that loop is while true, right?
Right.
So I'm never going to get out of that thing. Maybe if I put this up top here.
No.
I'm still a little bit confused by why it's saying none. Right?
Is none what it reports in an empty list entry?
Oh, that's a good guess. Yeah, let's see. So...
Oh, like instead of no?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, so which parts are working? Like, I have a sidewalk, right? Let's see. And Astroflower is at the sidewalk. Oh, but there's a bunch of sidewalks, so I kind of can't tell anything apart. So I'm just going to do this. I'm going to make there be two places. Hopefully that'll make my life a little bit more obvious. Okay, let's see. Oops. Let's clear that and run that again. Okay, so... Oh, great. They're both called Park. That's exactly what I wanted. Thank you. Super useful for diagnostic purposes. Okay, so I have Stephanie at the grocery store, and then Steve, Astroflower, and Meat Popsicle. Oh, and everybody else is at the park. So I got agents at the park are, and agents at the grocery store are, and both of them end with none.
So your loop is accessing one entry that's out of bounds, or it's going a little further than it should.
That seems like the case.
It's not indented though, that's kind of a clue.
Yeah, that one didn't get indented, which is a little weird. Maybe let me just dump the tab. Let's try that. Maybe that's my issue.
Now it's a toss-up between the grocery store and the park.
Yeah, everything's back to grocery stores. So that one's not indented. Where's that coming from, guys? See, what am I calling that method? I'm calling that for P's in the place list. Let me comment some stuff out, right? And just see if I can isolate this problem. So I'm going to comment out my agent status. Okay, so there's two places. Okay, and I'm still getting nones, and they're not indented. You guys see that? So what's the report method supposed to do?
Tell you where they went, and then when they left, and then the who's where.
Yeah, so in this thing, I'm calling the place report method, right? And so the place report method prints out the agents at the self.name, right? So the agents at the place are, okay, so the agents at the park are, right? And then it's supposed to go through the list of everybody and print out some spaces and then their name. So I've got spaces and then a name, spaces and a name, spaces and a name, spaces, blah, 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 right? And then there's this friggin' thing, none, which is not indented, right? And Chaz noticed that it wasn't indented a while ago. So the fact that it's not indented means that it's not a problem with one of the names. You guys see that? Because if it was a problem with one of the names, then it would be indented. Like if it was that one of the agents didn't have a name, then there would be 4 spaces and then this none. So where is that thing coming from? If it's not from in here, maybe it's from in here. What is this thing supposed to be doing? Look at the one that worked. This one was working, right? So what's different between line 77 and line 74?
So the one you commented out is asking the agents to report their location, and then the one down there is going through the places and place list.
Okay. Chaz, do you see it?
Oh, yeah.
Print p.report.
Uh-huh. What's the problem with print?
Oh, it's that you're asking a place to report, and it doesn't even know.
So I'm asking a place to report, right? Which it's doing, and then I'm printing the result of it reporting. But what's the result of it reporting? There is no result of it.
Yeah, it has no return.
Exactly. So this is one of the peculiarities of Python. If you don't specify return, it returns none. So that's what it's been printing this whole time. It's printing out the result of the report. The report method, right, is doing this stuff. That's working just fine. It's me. It's me printing out the result of that when there is no result.
So why doesn't it print out none after each cycle?
It prints out none after every time the report function finishes.
So for every place, essentially.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so it's printing one none for every place. Not for every line, because the loop is inside the report method. That make sense? Okay, so now if I take this thing, and I'm going to just pull that out now that we've got it working, and I'm going to put it into the loop. And now I should be able to see this thing where I go, all right, so there's two places, and there's some people, and then I've got a list of their actions, and then a list of who's where. And then if I do enter again, I should get lots of people stay where they are, and a couple people swap places, and then I should be able to see that they switched places. And I'm suffering a little bit from having not enough names, right? But do people often have overlapped names like that?
Sure.
Yeah, you would not believe the number of emails I get addressed to John Manlove and Jamar Manlove and Jill Manlove and
that's crazy funny.
it's super funny and yeah, super hilarious because I was given someone's banking information one time. Like my email address was set to the email address for their retirement account, which I couldn't give back to them.
Wow.
It was super obnoxious. Okay, at any rate, people often have the same name. So in this case, right, I'm separating them by keeping them as different instances of objects. Right, so they would even be allowed to have the same first and last name because it's not keyed by their name, it's keyed by their memory location. You guys feel me on that? Okay, and then if you wanted to add stuff to this, and this is kind of the assignment I was going to give Grace. Like, if you wanted to add stuff to this, you could add some kind of a, like, randomized encounter between people, right? So, like, when people are at the same place, right, you may be in your, thing, right? You've got agents wandering, right? And then for places you're doing a report, you could do place.interact or something, and then have the place select a few people that are there and have them, interact in some way or other, right? You could have an encounter in your dungeon crawler, or in your epidemiology model, you could have a probability that they transfer, disease from one to the other.
So I was thinking, like, hide and seek would be a really simple example. That, like, there's a probability that they'll be found.
Yeah.
If there's seekers in the area.
Yeah, for sure. We actually use a kind of a similar agent-based model for SAR, for kind of probabilities that searchers happen upon people. There's a number of kind of cool agent models for, like, people traveling over terrain and stuff. And we do a lot of we don't do so much computer modeling for it, but we do lots of considering of, like, the types of people. So, like, kids act differently than adults, and hunters act differently than kayakers.
Right, and, like, there's a big overlap just with data science.
Yeah, and there's a guy in Virginia that's curated a huge set of data for search and rescue calls in the entire state of Virginia. So there's a whole bunch of really interesting, like, it's for instance, one of them is Alzheimer's patients are almost always found in some kind of terrain trap. But a fence or a creek or the bottom of a ravine or kind of similar places. Because it just so happens that Alzheimer's patients move in basically straight lines in random directions. Like they'll, walk out of a door and then just pick a random direction and walk in a straight line that way. And the places they stop are places they can't get through. So when we're doing agent-based modeling, right, we have different behaviors for different types of subjects.
Sure. And
so the way we would do that in here, right, is we would extend the agent class to include a kid class, and the kids would have a different predilection, right? They would choose these areas with different probability. Like kids are not going to pick the hardware store, right?
Right.
They're gonna try to go to the park or the sidewalk or maybe the grocery store with mom, right? That kind of, do you guys see the usefulness of why we might do these kinds of models?
Definitely.
Okay, cool. Yeah, if you go into any kind of big data field, people either do analysis of huge data sets or they try to use the data set to figure out how the agents should act and then program an agent-based model like this. All right. Any questions on this stuff?
I'm good.
Okay. I'm going to let you guys have this set of code. And I actually wrote a slightly different version of this that's in the REPL that I have called agent-based model. And then this one is in the REPL called agent-based. You're welcome to either or both or whatever. The slightly different one I wrote kind of with Grace in mind, so it has a little bit more epidemiology focused stuff to it. But those are both available for you guys. If you want help keeping track of places and stuff in your dungeon crawler, do be aware that gets a little bit complicated fast. For instance, it's really hard to do like adjacent rooms. It's much easier to just have like the idea of rooms, the same way I have the idea of places here. I'm not trying to connect them with hallways or anything.
Right.
If you try to connect places like this, it gets a little bit harder. All right. I'm going to pause.